Welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast with your host, Michael Sherlock. We all have potential, but sometimes we need inspiration to get us to our peak performance. Whether you are starting out in your career, ready to move up the corporate ladder, or taking the leap into entrepreneurship, Michael's guests provide powerful tools and resources to shock your potential. Shock Your Potential is a global professional development training company committed to your unique journey. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com. Listen in to today's expert.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Shock Your Potential, where all month long we are talking about money matters, or money matters. Depends on the way you want to have the inflection. But regardless of the way you say it, it's about making sure that we all can learn a few new things about how to make sure our money works better for us. And my guest today is going to talk about something from a little different perspective with money matters, and it's going to have to do with your mindset. And I can't wait to pick her brain on this. Melissa Kirk Consulting offers the comprehensive capabilities and deep industry knowledge necessary to help you solve the most complex issues of your inner blueprint, which I think this is going to have a lot of psychological interpretations with it, which I can't wait to dive into. Since opening her doors in 2008, she's proud to say that each year she has a bigger list of returning and new clients. And people hire her to get results they've sought after, maybe to help her or have her help them to explore out of the box ideas. Some of them use her expertise to find and align with their true passion and purpose, maybe to shift their mindset to be empowered and create a lifestyle they desire. In all of these areas, she helps them find and purchase their things like their dream home, attract new clients, the people that they really want to work with and that will help their businesses, improve their relationships, systemize and grow their business, improve their health, and more. At the end of the day, she helps them get to the root of the issues going on in their lives, because only then can you turn things around to match your dreams, goals, and aspirations. So thank you, Melissa, for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I love it. I can't wait to dive down, especially into, not only money mindset, but, how our inner blueprint impacts us all, because I totally know it does. And I'm excited to hear from you and learn from you. But, I hit a couple of the highlights of your bio. Tell us a little bit more in your own words about you, your business, and how you help your clients to shock their potential.
Of course. So a little bit of my background is I was married for 20 years and went through a pretty brutal divorce, at which time I was filing bankruptcy. I hadn't worked. I'd been a stay-at-home mom, and I left the marriage really with nothing. So I really had to reinvent myself and figure out how I had gotten to where I was and how am I going to get out of this and create something new and be prosperous again. So, a lot of it started with just my mindset about money, about, whatever you think, the unconscious mind is always listening. So if you think that it's hard to earn money, then you're going to experience it to be hard to get money. If you think that money is, elusive or hard to come to or attract it, then that's what your experience will be. So what I really work with with my clients to start with is, where are they in their money mindset? Do they come from a place of lack, and then how to turn it into a financial abundance mindset that helps you to bring it in? And it was very powerful on my journey to really look at mindset issues. And one of the next piece that we're talking about, your inner blueprint, is when you really design your business or your life around what you're passionate about, what you're designed to do, what are in alignment with your natural strengths, it makes everything easier. It makes, you feel like you're just going to work to do what you love instead of dreading going to work. And when you get connected with your passion, your money and your vibration changes and raises because you're excited and you love what you're doing. You like the impact you're making, and money follows that. So it's a real combination of that, of finding your strengths. A lot of people set their businesses up against their weakness and trying to always overcome it, instead of just living in their strength, doing what they're good at, and hiring for other people to, pick up that area where they're not good at. So
yes, So many great things in there. And as you were talking about, whatever you're thinking, your subconscious is listening to. And I think it's so easy. So many times we say, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're always right. And I say it in that sing-songy voice because I think people think of it that way. But when you really slow down to listen to the words of that and the intent behind it, it is so absolutely true that if you think you can, then you're going to find a way to do it. And if you think you can't, you're going to find proof that you can't do it. And
Exactly.
that mindset shift is so critical. And I mean, I've suffered from it many times. In fact, I can suffer from it in the middle of a day. Like I can be having a great day and something happens. I'm like, I suck.
I
And for
know.
the next hour until I go, okay, you don't suck, but maybe that wasn't perfect. It's something that we have to work on, but we also have to be aware of. So when you work with your clients with this and you're first kind of uncovering some of the layers, peeling back the layers of their onion, it must be really emotional for a lot of people.
It is, it digs down into a lot of deep wounds for a lot of people. And, we've all had some kind of financial trauma,
Mhm.
whether it be, someone took us for a ride and embezzled money, or, we grew up in a very poor household and now we're trying to change that. It's a hard shift to come out of that and make a drastic change. So when you start to uncover those money beliefs and the patterns, it's very eye-opening, and it
Yeah.
makes things make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, wasn't too long ago that we had, the Mega Millions over $1 billion and the, Powerball almost at $1 billion. And I was buying tickets because, I mean, I don't buy them till they're over 400 million. It's just not worth my time. But I bought one every time it was over 400 million. But in the back of my head, there's always this fear. Like sounds great. But
Mhm.
would I then start being fearful of everything that I do or every place I go or the safety of my grandchildren or, all those things that come along with what if you actually get all the things you want, but you're not really prepared for them or that you don't know how to handle them, just like you see people who, as they get, sports contracts for, millions and millions of dollars and then go lose it, in no
Right.
time flat. There's just having money doesn't solve those money mindset issues that go back far, a part of our blueprint.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people have these fears of money, like whatever I'll make, it'll be taken away. So then they
Mm.
try to spend it as fast as they can, and they're not budgeting. And,
Ah,
just like you said with athletes, there's a very short window of their money making ability, and they do have to act wisely. But if you have all these money triggers going on and you're not aware of it, before you know it, you've sabotaged yourself. So yeah, it's amazing to realize really what the mechanics are and how it works to have money in your life. And um, I really love diving into, because I will ask them questions, like um, money or and about being rich. And
mm,
then all the things you just said, then you become a target. People think, oh, well, then everyone will want a handout, or I'll be responsible for all these people, right? And then all of a sudden you have 20 new family members that you didn't know about.
uh-huh.
And so people will block it for that. Another thing that people will block is, have to pay more in alimony or child
Mm,
support.
mhm. Yep.
And it's like, well, you're paying more, but then you actually have more too. You have to really, those can be really spiteful money beliefs. And
That hurt both people and
right.
kids.
And your kids. So there's so many things to uncover and so many things that just we're unaware of when we go. And so when you do a deep dive into it and see like what your habits are, beliefs are, and start to change them, your results really change.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. And thank you for sharing your personal story too. It reminds me, I interviewed a gentleman, I think in our January series, and he shared the fact that, growing up, he saw his parents like make and lose fortunes, and
mhm.
so they were always, there was either a overabundance or there was nothing. And he saw them lose basically everything in their family business eventually. And he said, I made it my mission. I was never going to do that. I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I was going to be successful. And he goes, and I was making all this money. And then I had a bad partnership. and that
Mhm.
stole everything from me. And he goes, and here I am, have preached my whole life that I'm not going to screw up like my parents did. And he goes, and I screwed up worse. And it was interesting just even talking about it, because you can tell he's gone past it, but at the same time, it still sits there. And I think these things, even as we talk about them and bring them out, they still sit somewhere in the back of our psyche and tell us those stories. Because I didn't even think about the fact that I shared my story about the lottery probably keeps me from winning the damn lottery.
Yeah, it does. I know. It's amazing what we block. And people also, I find the more people I work with, they are more fearful of being successful than they are of
Mhm.
failure. And so, I work with people when they're trying to get to the next level and they're trying to break through, new financial barriers or other barriers in their business. And they're really scared of, well, what if I am successful? What will happen? That's one
Yeah.
of the biggest things. So it does stop us in our tracks. And these things are deeply embedded into our brains and we're not even aware, but it's like a program, it's like malware running on the back of your computer. And now nothing's working efficiently. Everything slows down and you don't even see it, right? It's in the
Yeah.
background. And so that is so much what our unconscious mind is doing. And that's what I help people to become aware of, but then also shift so that they can have more empowering thoughts about money and get rid of the old baggage, deal with it, see what the benefit was and how it was keeping you safe. The unconscious mind is really designed to keep you safe. So how is this keeping you safe? And then, okay, now how can I not keep these beliefs and still be safe?
Mm. I'm writing this down. The unconscious mind is designed to keep you safe, but it really was there for the days when we had fight and flight,
Yes.
not whether or not we're going to negotiate for a better raise.
Yes. Well, and it also, it doesn't filter the information. It just
Yeah.
takes the information point blank. There's no common sense to it. It's got so it thinks like a 4-year-old. I mean, you wouldn't want a 4-year-old mentality in charge of your money. So you got to work with it and clean that stuff up.
That's true. Yeah, you got to go through and clean house. Well, let me ask you, I mean, what's one way that you can help somebody start to make that mental transition, to clean out some of that baggage and make room for new thought processes that allow for, a positive money mindset or, positive affirmations in that direction for abundance?
Yeah. So a lot of times, just the awareness that it's sitting there, people will shift, like without even doing any mind work or process or anything. So the first big piece is the awareness of what the block is and how you're sabotaging yourself. And then there's lots of different things, like I do NLP, I do theta healing and hypnosis. So all of those work on the unconscious mind to make those shifts, and they pull out the malware in the brain and put positive programming back in. You can also
Mhm.
do it through affirmations, but the affirmations really are working more on the conscious level, where the problem is more on the unconscious. So I find that the affirmations can work, but it's a longer process. But
Mhm.
I mean, I literally have been sitting in front of a client and brought them aware of what 2 or 3 things that in their family DNA and their programming, their life experience, like you said, being betrayed by a partner, and watching um, just in that moment, the whole shift. You can see the shift in their brain, and then they can start recognizing it and not falling into it, right?
Mhm.
So, when you're betrayed like that, you don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
When you see patterns like that, so you have to learn how to build the trust back in yourself, that you can
Mhm.
make good decisions, and that we're not in control of what anyone else does. So that's a lot of the process of just talking it through, getting down to where these things came from and how they're serving you, right? These things are serving you in some way. And so that's why, the law of attraction says that we're always creating we can have whatever we want and we're creating it, because these programs are sitting there. We are the designer of our life. And
Mhm.
as soon as we figure out what the problem is with being successful or making another $100,000 a year or whatever it is, I used to have a lot of beliefs around that I would be used, because I was in a situation where I had money when I was married and I had
Mhm.
I was giving and giving to people all the time. And then when I left my ex and I didn't have any money, no one was my friend. Like all these people that I'd helped just like turned their back on me because
Wow.
of their programs around, that against divorce, and you shouldn't get a divorce. So
Mhm.
that was I had to clean a lot of that money stuff up that I could have a friend and trust that they weren't just using me. And it
Right.
went into my money stuff. I'm sure like actors and movie stars, all of a sudden they come into all this money and you're like,
Yeah.
who really is my friend?
Yep.
You weren't my friend when I was nobody, when I had no money. And now all of a sudden you're my best friend.
Yep.
I had to work on those trust issues. And the same thing with having a business partner that takes you for a ride. Then you could really benefit from having partnership in your business. But if you don't trust each other, and it's really hard to trust unless you deal with those, you know, because if we look back, there were always signs, right?
Yeah.
There were signs of it that we missed. Like if your husband's cheating on you, if you look back on it, there were signs there, but we ignore it because
Mhm.
it's hard to deal with. So it's really getting real with yourself
Mhm.
on what really is empowering to you and how to notice the signs and just not get into those traps, but not living in fear that it's going to
Mhm.
happen again. So unless you rewire the unconscious mind, I think it's really challenging.
It really is. I actually have been doing a lot of hypnosis for probably 2 years now. In fact, I was very fortunate that I use an app for it, and the gentleman who has the app, his name is Glenn Harold. I always say I need to like figure out how to get a cut of all his action because I promote him all the time, and I'm not getting any of this, but just out of my own goodness of heart. But um, I got to interview him for the podcast as well as a section in my app. But I love I always wondered about hypnosis meditation. Did I say meditation? I meant hypnosis meditation. So I had always wondered what, if it's okay. And, is somebody going to plant something weird in your head? And then I found, his app and how he puts, where he takes you in that journey, the hypnosis journey. And it has been so powerful in my vision of the world, in my vision of myself, in my understanding of control. And this is not money. Well, it's kind of actually money related, but kind of interesting. Last night, I was really disappointed because I had a big speaking gig coming up. And sure enough, it canceled, which now put me back like it's, 2020 and everything's canceling. And I was really disappointed because I was excited about the event. Sure, you want the money. So I have all these things going through my head and I couldn't fall asleep. So I put on one of his sleep meditations and it got me to sleep for about 2 hours. And then I woke up thinking again about my frustration, my disappointment. So I let that ruminate for a little bit and I started it again. And about 15 minutes into it, I knew I had to get up and I just had to get up. I had to get up and deal with it. I had to
Mhm.
deal with all those emotions. What was I feeling and why was I feeling? And yes, it's 2:30 in the morning and I wish I was sleeping because the next day I'm taping 6 hours of podcast, but I'm not going to get back to sleep until I deal with it. And finally is now I can say, because finally I remember at the point it was about 3:30 and I went, oh, I'm sad
Yeah,
because I was excited to be in a room with people. And
right.
I was I was excited because this was something of normal. And I'm sad because it's not going to happen. And just to your point, when you help people make that recognition, one of the things with hypnosis for me has been able to more clearly put words to the
Mhm.
emotions that are getting in my way of sleep or peace or, stress reduction or whatever. And that's a really powerful thing.
It is. And I really feel like trying to change your money patterns and how much money you have in your life, if you don't do this foundational work, it's very difficult. I mean, it really, when you start really changing yourself on the DNA level and start facing the things that, are running the programs, it really changes quickly. And it really
Mhm.
can get you to another level that you never knew you could experience.
Yeah, I
Very
totally agree.
powerful.
I
Yeah.
agree. I love the things you're talking about because I so agree. This is foundation work. And sometimes I think we think, especially as we get older, that we can't really change these things in ourselves because, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or I've been like this way forever, or this is how my parents raised me. So did those kind of mindsets also get in the way of where people are, even though they're like, okay, well, I recognize it now, but
Well, of course. I mean, these things are deeply rooted. So, I mean, if you think of it as a large tree and look at the root system, so you may clear up like 1/8 of the piece of the root system, and you still have the rest of it to deal with. So it can be a long journey. I know when I first started working on my money beliefs, it probably took a good 5 years of consistent working on it before I really felt like someone had cut all the ropes and I was free, so
Mm.
it takes time, and it can be very entwined with other parts of life. And
Hmm.
you can feel guilty about straying from your family beliefs. And, a lot of times I'm working with people, and what's making them stuck is the fact of the fear of making more money than their parents.
Ah,
And so they feel like it's disrespectful to surpass them, or there's so many things that logically we think there's no way that that's the problem, but it is. It's making you, I can't really pass. My dad only made this much money. And so anytime I go past that, and then you change it to look at all the people I'll impact if I make that much money. I can
yeah.
actually help my parents. If they only had this amount of money, now I can help them. When you just reframe it and see how it's helping you, and that you can make more money without being disrespectful to your parents,
Right.
things like that. So, yeah, I think it's really challenging to move out of what your roots were and move out of what the patterns were in your life. And like, if this happens like it did in my family, this is the result, and I don't want that result, so I'll just stay here where it's safe,
Yeah.
and that's what. So it's so eye-opening. It makes you just feel so free when you identify what those are and make the shift.
Well, and as you were talking too, I was thinking there's probably somebody listening that says, "Well, I do understand what you're saying about feeling guilty about making more than my parents, but I'm going ahead and doing it, but I'm not telling anybody."
Right.
Like I don't want anyone to know, and then it becomes a bad secret. And the secrets about money are just as, powerful as,
Yeah.
the, other thing baggage that you can have with money, and probably worse in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And I mean, that's when I would teach my client that I can make more money than my parents, and without hiding it, without having to keep it a secret, and learning,
Mhm.
like training your brain that that's okay. You can have both. That's a lot of, they call them dual beliefs. There's a
Mhm.
lot of beliefs that, well, if I do that and get rid of that, then this is the problem that will develop, and how to do both of them without problem.
Mhm.
That's a lot of the work. And it is true that really silly things will come up, and you would never think that's what the problem was. And,
Mm.
it is.
Two quick stories for you. One is I remember, and I don't remember I know what year it was, but I don't remember if this book was new at the time. But there's a book, and it's still a book out, and it's called The Secrets of Six-Figure Women. And it was at that point in my career where I knew I wanted to cross over to six figures. And I was really close that year. And I think I picked up the book in like December. And I think I ended that year just under six figures. And I was like, I'm going to. And I'll tell you what, I hit six figures before the first 9 months of the year. And
Yeah.
it was so powerful. But on the flip side, one of the things that not, I guess not on the negative flip side, but another, as you're talking about that sense of with your parents, when I got my first big job, like the first big promotion, and it came with a company car and it had all kinds of benefits. And I was so excited. And I didn't really think about the fact that, my mom was a stay-at-home mom and my dad owned a gas station, and he didn't, probably ever make more than $40,000 in a year. And he worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. But I brought him my offer letter, and I remember watching him reading my offer letter and tearing up. And I'm like,
Wow.
"Dad, are you okay?" Like, he's like, "Can I just hold this for a while?" So I said, "Sure." Didn't think of anything of it. Never thought another thing of it. About 2 months later, he hands me this piece of paper and he goes, "Here, I meant to give this back." And it's, in a square. And I'm like, "What is it?" I open it up and it's my offer letter. And it had been opened and folded so many times, it was pulling apart. And I went, "Oh, I think I
That's
made
so
my daddy
sweet.
proud."
Yeah.
And I wanted to hold that feeling,
Hmm.
because that was a really positive money issue. And I don't think I had very much money confidence in those days.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. When you go to another whole level, you have to relearn everything, and, but you have to take the step and the plunge. And sometimes that's the biggest step, is just identifying that you want more, and that, this is how I'm going to get more. Because I think that out of all the work that I've done around money, that's the most powerful when you're working with the unconscious mind.
Mm.
And, then you can learn how to invest it, and you can learn safeguards. If you've had a lot of money and lost it, and so your trigger is that it doesn't matter how much money I make because the IRS will take it, or somebody will embezzle it, or I'm going to lose it in my investments, and that's what, sometimes it's working with people on those fears. So they blocked it to even have it because of what will happen after they have it.
Yep.
And then you clear all that stuff up and they start making it. And then they find trusted advisors. They find people that are experts in that area and help diversify it and everything. I mean, it's just, but it really does, the groundwork really sets the platform for where you can move from. And I think it's really powerful. And I think it's awesome that how proud your dad was of you. And you know what? I think a lot of people that have the fear of making more than their money, if they did that with their parent, I think that I don't think that the reaction they think in their head, I don't think that's what would happen. I think your parents are proud of you. I don't think that but we get it in our head. And it's like we just create this false reality and then we're stuck in it. So that's a beautiful story.
And all parents want their kids to do better than they are,
Yeah.
You want your kids to have it easier than you did.
Yes, definitely. Learn from your mistakes.
Exactly. Well, and so let me ask you this, just in case there's somebody listening here right now and they're like, okay, so Melissa, I realize as I'm listening to this, I got a couple hangups. What are a couple things that they can do that, right now that they could start themselves on the journey? And then of course we'll tell them how to reach you after that. But just in case they say, right now I feel compelled to do something to start to get a hold of this. What are some of your ideas for them?
Well, I think really asking some of the questions we've talked about today and just sit down and write as many, one of the questions I always start with is money is, and then write down as many things that come up. And I will get people that say it's dirty, right?
Oh.
I will get, it's the root of all evil. I will get, it's the breaker of friends, and then some people will say it leads to opportunity. It's the best, you'll get all kinds of things. But I think that if you just don't filter, right? If you get a negative thing coming up and don't filter, but write everything down and just download it, you can at least see where you are, and you can at least see. And the other thing is thinking about, even if you just sit and close your eyes and envision yourself winning the lotto, and envision yourself having $10 million, $100 million, whatever that big number is for you. And then what's the worst that would happen if you had all that? I'm going to get used. Someone might steal it. I have to pay a bunch in taxes, all those things, and start writing them down. And when you look at that, it really creates an awareness of at least where you are and what the problem is. And then dealing with where did that come from and what's the benefit? Like, what was it keeping you safe from? Those are that's kind of the cycle you go through, and then realize, all of the benefit that actually comes from having that money, or that's not true. Just like my parents will be ashamed of me, or I'm competing with my parents, or they'll be upset with me, and then thinking about that conversation and just visualizing your conversation with your dad. And realizing, that isn't true. That's not how it happens. They would be very proud of me, because the truth is that when a parent has a child that's successful, that's all they talk about, right? They go to their family party, they go here, they're telling everyone how much you make. And you're like, Dad, don't tell everybody, but they're so proud of you. So
Exactly. That's is so true. You're right. That's the joy we get. Well, let me tell you about my son.
Yeah.
And my daughter, my other son. I love it.
Yeah.
Liz, I think that you have a great perspective. I think this is just a perfect addition to our series this month. And I know we'll have all of your contact information on the show notes, but just in case somebody wants to look you up right now because they're like, I need to know more about how I might work with this woman, what's the best way for them to find you?
You can go to my website, and it's melissakirk.com. It's MELISSAKIRK.com. There's a lot of information there. You can also reach out and contact me from there. So
Wonderful. So before we go, do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners and viewers?
just get down and get real with yourself. See the truth that's running behind the scene, and just make one with it. No point in denying it or avoiding it or whatever. Just be real. Be honest with yourself.
Amen. Amen. You can't do, at least that way, you know it's out in the open.
Yes.
Excellent. Melissa, thank you. You have been a fabulous guest. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com, including details on Michael's 2 best-selling books. Tell me more, how to ask the right questions and get the most out of your employees, and sales mixology, why the most potent sales and customer experiences follow a recipe for success. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.